The laughter that followed felt like knives. I opened my mouth, but no words came, just the crushing weight of humiliation and the terrible knowledge that she was right. I was nothing, no one, an Omega so ordinary that I might as well not exist. Before we get deep into the story, please let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Hit subscribe if you're hooked in and ready to enjoy this story, because tomorrow I have another beautiful story to share with you, and I don't want you to miss it for anything. Now let's get into the story. Then the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. She's not invisible to me. The voice was like rolling thunder, deep, rough, carrying the kind of authority that made every wolf in the hall instinctively straighten. A man emerged from the shadows near the entrance, so massive, he had to duck beneath the doorframe. Built like a fortress wall, with dark hair, granite gray eyes, and a presence that commanded absolute attention. Gideon Stone, alpha of the rival Stone Ridge pack, the most dangerous man in the region. He crossed the hall in 3 powerful strides, and before I could process what was happening, one arm wrapped around my waist and pulled me against a chest that felt like solid stone. "Act like you're mine," he murmured into my ear, too quiet for anyone else to hear. His breath was warm against my neck, his grip possessive and protective all at once. I didn't understand. Didn't know why the most powerful alpha I'd ever seen was touching me, claiming me, looking at the crowd like he'd tear apart anyone who dared question him. Then, louder to the stunned assembly, "This Omega is under my protection now. Anyone who disrespects her, disrespects me." The hall erupted into chaos. Whispers, gasps, Amber's face twisted with fury. Finn looked like he'd been punched. And me. I stood frozen in Gideon Stone's arms, wondering if I'd just been rescued or claimed by something far more dangerous than simple humiliation. I didn't know then that those 4 words, "act like you're mine," would change everything. That the biggest lie I'd ever told would become the truest thing in my life. Or that being invisible had taught me to see things no one else could, and that gift would be the only thing standing between survival and destruction when the predators came hunting. Chapter 1. The Invisible Omega. The night of Finn's engagement celebration. I'd known this night was going to hurt. What I hadn't expected was how much. The Crescent Moon Pack's grand hall glowed with candlelight and celebration, filled with wolves in their finest clothes toasting Finn Carter and Amber Cross's engagement. Music played. Wine flowed. Everyone looked happy, beautiful, alive. Everyone except me. I stood at the edge of the crowd in a simple sage green dress that Lily had helped me pick out. "It brings out your eyes," she'd insisted, though I knew it wouldn't matter. Nothing I wore would make me stand out. I was background noise. Wallpaper. The Omega daughter of the pack healer, who'd spent her entire life being so thoroughly overlooked that most wolves forgot I existed until they needed bandages or remedies. 24 years of practice had made me an expert at being invisible. I knew exactly where to stand to avoid notice, exactly how to move through crowds without drawing eyes, exactly how to make myself small enough that people would look right through me. Tonight, I wished I could disappear completely, because watching Finn, my Finn, the boy I'd loved since we were children, smile at Amber Cross like she hung the moon, was breaking something inside me that I didn't know how to fix. "You okay?" Lily appeared at my elbow, her bubbly energy, a sharp contrast to my misery. She was the only real friend I had, an Omega like me, but blessed with the kind of cheerful personality that made people actually notice her. "Fine," I lied, taking a sip of wine I didn't want. "Liar." She squeezed my hand. "You don't have to stay, Nova. No one would notice if you left." That was the problem, wasn't it? No one would notice. I could walk out right now, and the celebration would continue exactly as it was, not a single person aware that I'd gone. "I'll stay a bit longer," I said, because leaving felt like admitting defeat. Like acknowledging that Amber had won not just Finn's heart, but the right to erase me entirely. Finn and Amber stood at the center of attention, exactly where they belonged. He was handsome in his formal clothes, his beta warrior strength evident in every line of his body. She was stunning in white silk that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe, her blonde hair perfect, her smile brilliant. They looked like they'd stepped out of a fairy tale. The perfect couple. The future beta and his beautiful mate. And me? I was the friend who'd been too cowardly to ever tell him how I felt, who'd watched from the shadows for years, hoping he might notice me the way I noticed him, knowing he never would. "He asked about you yesterday," Lily offered quietly. "Wanted to know if you were coming tonight." "Did he?" My voice came out flat. "He feels guilty, Nova." "He knows." "He knows what? That I've been in love with him since we were 12? I laughed bitterly. "He's known for years, Lily. He just never felt the same way. That's not his fault. It was mine, for being too ordinary, too quiet, too forgettable. Amber had made sure I understood that from the moment she'd set her sights on Finn 3 years ago. She'd tormented me with sweet smiles and sharp comments, always careful to do it when no one important was watching. Little cruelties that left no marks but cut deep anyway. Why do you even bother coming to pack events, Nova? It's not like anyone notices you're here. Finn's too kind to tell you, but you embarrass him, walking around like a ghost. You should just stay home. You're not really Omega, are you? You're just nothing. Too weak to be anything at all. And now she'd won, claimed the prize, secured her place as future beta female while I remained exactly what I'd always been, invisible. The speeches began, pack elders toasting the happy couple, Finn's parents beaming with pride, Amber's father talking about the strong alliance this union would create. I tried to slip further into the shadows, but Amber's eyes found me across the room. Her smile turned predatory. No, please, no. Before we continue, Amber's voice rang out, sweet as poisoned honey. I want to hear from someone very special. Nova Grace, Finn's oldest and dearest friend. Come up here, Nova. The crowd turned to look, hundreds of eyes searching for me in the shadows. Lily's hand tightened on mine. You don't have to. But I was already moving, my body betraying me, responding to the social pressure, even as my mind screamed to run. Wolves parted to let me through, their expressions ranging from curiosity to pity to nothing at all. Amber grabbed my arm as soon as I reached the platform, pulling me forward with fingers that dug in just hard enough to hurt. Up close, her smile was vicious. Tell everyone how happy you are for us, she purred. For Finn and me, your dearest friend, finding his perfect mate. Surely you have something to say. Finn's eyes met mine. Guilt. Discomfort. But he didn't intervene. He never did. My face burned. My throat closed. Every wolf in the hall was staring at me, actually seeing me for once, and all they saw was exactly what Amber wanted them to see. A pathetic Omega who'd nursed a hopeless crush for years and was too weak to let it go. I tried, but my voice cracked. Amber's laugh was light, musical, cruel. Or are you too busy being invisible to have feelings? You know, it's funny. You're so forgettable that no alpha would even pretend to want you. Isn't that right? The crowd laughed, some uncomfortable, some genuinely amused. My humiliation was entertainment. I wanted to die. Wanted to shift into my wolf and run into the forest and never come back. Wanted to disappear so completely that even my own memories would forget I'd existed. Then everything changed. The temperature dropped so suddenly that I saw my breath mist in the air. The laughter died. Every wolf in the hall felt it. The presence of something powerful, something dangerous, something that made our instincts scream for us to submit or flee. A voice cut through the silence like a blade. She's not invisible to me. I turned, and my heart stopped. A man stood near the entrance, so large he seemed to fill the doorway. He had to duck slightly to enter, and when he straightened, I saw exactly what had made the entire hall go silent. Gideon Stone was a legend made flesh. The Alpha of Stone Ridge Pack was massive, easily 6.5 feet of pure warrior strength, built like he'd been carved from granite and taught to fight. Dark hair shot through with silver at the temples despite him being only in his early 30s. Eyes like chips of stone, hard and unyielding, and currently fixed on me with an intensity that made my knees weak. He was terrifying, beautiful in the way a storm is beautiful, commanding in a way that made every other alpha in the room look like a child playing dress-up. And he was walking directly toward me. The crowd parted like water before him. No one dared stand in his way. Pack elders bowed their heads. Warriors lowered their eyes. Even Amber's confident smile faltered as Gideon Stone crossed the hall in 3 powerful strides. He stopped directly in front of me. Up close, he was overwhelming, towering over me, radiating heat and power, and something that made my wolf stir for the first time in years. His scent hit me like a physical thing, pine and stone and winter storms. "Forgive the interruption," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall despite being barely above conversational volume. But I couldn't let this continue. One massive hand reached for me. I should have been terrified. Should have fled. But something in his eyes, something I couldn't quite name, held me frozen as his arm wrapped around my waist and pulled me against his chest. The world tilted. I was suddenly pressed against solid muscle and leather, his warmth surrounding me, his presence overwhelming every sense I possessed. His lips brushed my ear, his voice dropping to a whisper only I could hear. "Act like you're mine." I didn't understand, didn't know what he wanted, or why or what game he was playing. But then he turned to face the crowd, keeping me tucked against his side, and spoke with the absolute authority of an alpha who had never been questioned. "This Omega is under my protection now. She is mine. Anyone who disrespects her." His eyes found Amber, and she actually flinched. Disrespects me. The silence that followed was deafening. Finn looked like he'd been punched. Amber's face had gone white with fury. The pack elders were exchanging panicked glances, and Gideon Stone's arm around my waist felt like an iron band, possessive and unbreakable. "I don't understand," I whispered, too quiet for anyone but him to hear. "You will," he murmured back. "For now. Just follow my lead." And because I didn't know what else to do, because for the first time in my life, someone powerful was actually seeing me, actually claiming me, actually making me matter, I leaned into his embrace and let the biggest lie I would ever tell begin. Chapter 2. Act like you're mine. The silence stretched like pulled wire, ready to snap at any moment. I stood frozen against Gideon Stone's chest, his arm an iron band around my waist, his presence overwhelming every rational thought I possessed. The entire hall stared at us, at me, and for the first time in my life, being seen felt more dangerous than being invisible. Alpha Stone. My pack's leader, Elder Marcus, found his voice first, though it trembled slightly. "This is unexpected. We weren't aware you had any interest in." His eyes flicked to me, searching for the right word and clearly coming up empty. "In what?" Gideon's voice dropped to something lethal. "In claiming what's mine." The possessiveness in those words sent electricity down my spine. His thumb traced a small circle against my hip, a gesture too subtle for anyone else to see but impossible for me to ignore. "We meant no disrespect," another elder stammered. "But the Crescent Moon Pack and Stone Ridge have been distant for years. This alliance is exactly why I'm here." Gideon's tone shifted, became almost diplomatic, though his hold on me never loosened. "The territorial tensions in this region have escalated. Cyrus Wolf's expansion threatens us all. Your pack needs Stone Ridge's strength. My pack needs your strategic positioning." His fingers tightened fractionally on my waist. "And I need her." The way he said it made it sound real. Made it sound like I was something worth needing. Amber's laugh was sharp, brittle. "Her? You're claiming her as justification for an alliance?" "Nova Grace, the pack's invisible Omega. Forgive me, Alpha Stone, but there are far more suitable." "Are you questioning my choice?" The temperature dropped another 10 degrees. Gideon didn't raise his voice, didn't need to. The threat in those words was absolute. Amber went silent, but her eyes promised murder. Finn stood beside her looking gutted, lost, like the ground had opened beneath his feet. "The alliance is already decided," Gideon continued, addressing the elders now. "Your Alpha agreed to it 3 days ago. I'm here tonight to seal it, by taking a mate from your pack. To show my commitment, to prove that what's yours is mine to protect." My mind raced. 3 days ago? This had been planned? Then why? "I'll be taking Nova with me tonight," Gideon announced. "She'll live at Stone Ridge as my mate." "Any objections?" He was asking, but the way he asked made it clear that objections would be unwise. Elder Marcus exchanged glances with the other leaders. Political calculation flickered across their faces. An alliance with Stone Ridge was valuable. I was not. The math was simple. "No objections," Marcus said slowly. "If Nova consents." "She does." Gideon's grip shifted, turned almost gentle. "Don't you, little Omega?" I should have been terrified. Should have run. But standing there in his arms, with Amber's fury and Finn's guilt and the pack's dismissive stares surrounding me, I realized something. I had nothing to lose. No status to protect. No dignity left to preserve. I was already nothing. What did I have to lose by pretending to be something? "Yes," I whispered. Then, louder. "Yes, I consent." Gideon's smile was brief, satisfied. "Then we're done here." He turned, keeping me tucked against his side, and walked toward the exit. The crowd parted like he was Moses, and they were the Red Sea. I caught glimpses of faces as we passed. Shock, confusion, envy, disgust. Lily's worried eyes, Finn's devastated expression. Then we were outside in the cool night air, and I could finally breathe. "My car is this way." Gideon's voice was different now. Still commanding, but less performative. He guided me across the grounds toward a black vehicle that looked expensive and predatory. An older man with silver hair stood beside it, watching our approach with eyes that seemed to see straight through me. Something about his gaze made my wolf stir uneasily. "Arthur Reed, my advisor," Gideon said briefly. "Arthur, this is Nova Grace." "Miss Grace." Arthur's voice was warm, gentle, but his eyes studied me like I was a puzzle he'd been trying to solve for decades. "It's a pleasure." "Pleasure," I echoed numbly. Gideon opened the car door. "Get in. We have things to discuss." I hesitated, reality crashing down. I was leaving, with a man I didn't know, to a pack I'd never seen, because he'd claimed me in front of everyone, and I'd been too desperate and humiliated to refuse. What had I just done? Nova. Gideon's voice was surprisingly gentle. Get in the car. I promise I'll explain everything. You're safe. Safe. When was the last time I'd felt safe? I got in the car. The door closed behind me with a finality that felt like a coffin lid. Gideon slid into the driver's seat. Arthur took the passenger side, and we pulled away from the celebration. From my pack, from my home, from everything I'd ever known. Why? I finally found my voice. Why me? Why tonight? What's really happening? Gideon's eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. In the darkness, they looked almost silver. Because you were in danger, he said simply. And because I need a mate to make the alliance look real. 6 months. That's all I'm asking. Pretend to be mine for 6 months. Let the political situation stabilize. Then we quietly separate. You get protection and status. I get credibility. Everyone wins. Except it's all a lie. The best lies are built on truth. His gaze held mine. And the truth is, Nova Grace, you're far more valuable than your pack ever realized. You just don't know it yet. Arthur Reed turned in his seat to look at me, and that strange knowing expression was back. She will, he said softly. Soon enough, she will. I didn't understand what they meant. Didn't understand any of this. But as we crossed the border into Stone Ridge territory and I felt something in my chest shift, something that had been sleeping for 24 years suddenly stirring to life, I realized I'd just agreed to something far more complicated than a simple fake relationship. As I agreed to become Gideon Stone's fake mate, I didn't realize I was signing up for something far more dangerous than pretending to be loved. I was signing up to become a weapon in a war. One didn't even know was being fought, and I was the ammunition. Chapter 3. Crossing the Border. I packed my entire life in under an hour. That should have told me something about the life I was leaving behind. 1 duffel bag. That's all I had. Simple clothes in earth tones that helped me blend into backgrounds. A few books. The pressed flowers Finn had given me when we were 12, before everything got complicated. I stared at them for a long moment before leaving them on the dresser. Some things didn't deserve to come with me into whatever this new existence was going to be. You don't have to do this, Lily said for the 10th time, folding a sweater with trembling hands. Her eyes were red from crying. You could stay. We could figure something out. Figure out what? How to make people finally see me. I shook my head. At least at Stone Ridge, I'll be seen. Even if it's all pretend. She grabbed my hands, forcing me to look at her. Promise me you'll be careful. Promise me, if he hurts you, you'll run. I promise. The lie tasted bitter. Outside my small room, the pack house continued its morning routine. I heard wolves laughing, talking, living their lives. None of them came to say goodbye. Why would they? Most probably didn't even know I was leaving. My mother appeared in the doorway as I zipped the duffel. She looked exhausted, worn down by years of healing others, while carrying her own unspoken burdens. In her hands, she held a leather-bound journal. Take this. She pressed it into my hands, her grip surprisingly strong. Write in it. Document everything. Mom, I don't understand. You will. Her eyes, the same hazel as mine, held secrets I'd never been allowed to know. Nova, listen to me. Sometimes being overlooked is the universe's way of protecting you. But that protection doesn't last forever. When it ends, she touched my cheek gently. When it ends, remember who you are, not what they told you to be. Before I could ask what she meant, Gideon's presence filled the doorway. My mother's expression shifted instantly to neutral deference. The pack healer, acknowledging an alpha. But I saw something flicker in her eyes. Recognition? Fear? It's time, Gideon said simply. The goodbye with Lily was tearful. The goodbye with my mother was weighted with things unsaid. The goodbye with my pack was non-existent, because there was no one else who cared enough to say it. Gideon's car was as intimidating as he was. Sleek, black, expensive. I slid into the passenger seat, clutching my single duffel bag, feeling like I was sitting in a predator's mouth. The silence as we drove was suffocating. I watched him from the corner of my eye, trying to reconcile the terrifying alpha who'd claimed me last night with the man who drove with meticulous care, who checked his mirrors constantly, whose eyes never stopped scanning the tree line like threats lurked behind every tree. Why did you really choose me? The question escaped before I could stop it. His jaw tightened. I told you, the alliance needed. No, surprising myself with my boldness. You could have chosen anyone, someone stronger, more beautiful, more. Anything. So why me? For a long moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, because no one was looking at you, that made you safe. Safe from what? His knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. From being noticed by the wrong people. I didn't understand. Didn't understand any of this. But something in his tone made me stop pushing. The landscape began to change as we drove. Where Crescent Moon territory was gentle hills and cultivated forests, Stone Ridge was wild. Jagged mountains, dense woods, terrain that looked like it would eat you alive if you weren't careful. It was beautiful, in a fierce, untamed way that made my chest ache. And then we crossed the border. I felt it, actually felt the moment we entered Stone Ridge territory. Something inside me that had been dormant for as long as I could remember, suddenly stirred. My wolf, my quiet, barely there wolf, lifted its head for the first time in years. "What?" I gasped, pressing a hand to my chest where warmth bloomed like sunlight. Gideon's eyes snapped to me, sharp and assessing. "You feel it." "Feel what? What's happening?" But he didn't answer, just drove faster, his expression unreadable. Stone Ridge's pack house appeared around a bend, massive, built into the mountainside itself, more fortress than home. Warriors patrolled the grounds, their eyes tracking our approach with lethal focus. These weren't the comfortable pack members I'd grown up with. These were soldiers. The car stopped. Gideon was out and opening my door before I could process that we'd arrived. His hand extended to help me out, surprisingly gentle given his size. Pack members had gathered to see the alpha's new mate. Their expressions ranged from confusion to skepticism to outright hostility. I heard the whispers. "That's her? She's tiny. An Omega from Crescent Moon? What's the alpha thinking? She won't last a week here." I wanted to disappear. Wanted my invisibility back. But Gideon's hand on my lower back kept me anchored, kept me standing, when every instinct screamed to run. "This is Nova," he announced, his voice carrying absolute authority. "My mate. She will be treated with the respect that position demands." It wasn't a request. Arthur Reed materialized from the crowd, his silver hair gleaming in the morning sun. Up close, his eyes were ancient, far older than his face suggested. He studied me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "Welcome to Stone Ridge, Miss Grace." His voice was warm, but those eyes, those knowing eyes, traced my features like he was reading a book written in a language only he understood. "You have your mother's eyes. But the rest," he tilted his head, "the rest is something altogether different." "I don't understand," I whispered. His smile was sad and secretive. "You will, child, soon enough. You will." That night, sleeping in an unfamiliar room, in an unfamiliar territory, I dreamed. Silver light poured through my window, bathing everything in lunar brilliance. Voices called my name, ancient, powerful, familiar, despite never having heard them before. They whispered secrets I couldn't quite catch, showed me visions I couldn't quite see. "Wake up," they commanded. "Wake up, little Sigma. It's time." I bolted upright, gasping, my skin slick with sweat. My hands were cramping, fingers curled like claws. The headboard bore deep gouges, 4 parallel scratches that hadn't been there when I went to sleep. "What? You're beginning to remember," a voice said softly from the doorway. Arthur Reed stood there, backlit by hallway light, looking at me with an expression that was somehow both triumphant and mournful. "Remember what?" My voice shook. He stepped into the room, his eyes finding the claw marks on the headboard. When he looked back at me, there was something like reverence in his gaze. "What you are," he said simply, "and what you've always been. I've been waiting decades for you to arrive, Nova Grace. We all have. Welcome home." Chapter 4. The Sigma's Shadow. Stone Ridge was nothing like home. Everything here was bigger, rougher, more intense. From the warriors who moved like weapons to the lodge itself, all dark wood and stone that seemed carved from the mountain's bones. Even the air felt different, charged with something wild and dangerous that made my wolf pace restlessly beneath my skin. The pack tested me from the first morning. A warrior accidentally bumped into me, hard enough to send me sprawling. Another questioned loudly why their alpha would claim such a fragile Omega. During meals, conversations stopped when I entered, eyes tracking my every movement with skeptical assessment. I did what I'd always done, retreated into observation, made myself small, watched from the shadows. But this time, something was different. This time, I wasn't just hiding, I was studying. I noticed how the patrol rotations left a 15-minute gap in the eastern perimeter every shift change. How Marcus, Gideon's beta, favored his left leg after training. How Elena, the pack healer, watched me with the same knowing look my mother had worn. How the younger wolves instinctively deferred to certain older members regardless of rank. Details, patterns, weaknesses. "Your eastern patrol has a vulnerability," I mentioned to Gideon one evening as he reviewed security reports in his office. The words escaped before I could stop them. He looked up sharply. "What?" "During shift changes, there's a 15-minute window where the coverage overlaps, but the wolves are focused on transition protocol instead of actual surveillance. Someone familiar with your patterns could exploit it. Silence. His granite eyes studied me with an intensity that made my pulse race. How long have you been observing my patrol patterns? I wasn't trying to. It's just something I notice. I've always noticed things. People just never asked before. His expression shifted into something I couldn't read. Show me. I did. He fixed it immediately, then asked what else I'd noticed. By the time I finished, he was looking at me like I was a puzzle he desperately wanted to solve. You see everything, don't you? He said quietly. I shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. People don't notice the invisible girl, so the invisible girl notices everything else. You're not invisible here, Nova, not to me. The way he said it made my chest tight. Arthur Reed appeared the next morning requesting permission to prepare me for Luna duties. Gideon agreed immediately, though something passed between them, a look laden with unspoken communication. Arthur's lessons weren't what I expected. Tell me what you know about pack history, he began, settling into a chair in the library like he had all the time in the world. The basics: alpha bloodlines, territorial accords, the Great War. Not that history. His eyes gleamed. The real history, the one they don't teach anymore. Over the next days, he told me about Sigma wolves. They were rare, even in ancient times. Arthur explained, his voice taking on a storyteller's cadence. A bloodline that appeared once in several generations. Sigmas could sense truth from lies, influence pack bonds, command loyalty through sheer presence. They were judges, mediators, truth keepers. They sound powerful. Too powerful. Corrupt alphas couldn't manipulate them, couldn't break them, couldn't control them. So 50 years ago, during the Purge, they hunted Sigmas to extinction, systematically, ruthlessly. His voice went soft. I watched it happen. Something cold slithered down my spine. You watched? I'm older than I look, child. I've seen things I wish I could forget. I thought it was just history, a tragic story about power and persecution. But Arthur watched my reaction with those ancient eyes, like he was waiting for something. Strange things kept happening around me. Lights flickered when I was frustrated. During a tense conversation, the temperature dropped 10 degrees. Pack members I'd barely spoken to started seeking my opinion, trusting my judgment without knowing why. And then there was training with Gideon. Aluna needs to defend herself, he'd said, leading me to the training grounds. My pack won't respect weakness. I expected him to go easy on me. He didn't. But his hands were careful when they positioned my stance, his voice patient when explaining techniques. During a grappling exercise, our bodies pressed close, his breath warm against my neck as he murmured corrections. The fake relationship suddenly felt dangerously real. The first pack dinner arrived too quickly. Dozens of wolves gathered in the Great Hall, their eyes on me, the Omega who'd somehow claimed their alpha's attention. I wanted to run, wanted to disappear. But then a young warrior made a comment loud enough for me to hear. She won't last. Too weak. Too scared. Something inside me snapped. Not anger. Something else. Something that had been building since I crossed the border into this territory, since my wolf woke up, since Arthur started telling me about extinct bloodlines. I stood, and every eye turned to me. The room went quiet. I could feel their doubt, their dismissal, their certainty that I didn't belong. You're right, I said, my voice carrying in a way it never had before. I'm not like you. I'm not a warrior. I'm not strong in the ways you value. The young warrior smirked. But I see things you don't, I continued, and something in my tone made his smirk falter. I notice everything you miss, and I will learn everything you know. So test me if you want. Dismiss me if you need to. But understand this. I'm here. I'm staying, and I will earn my place. The authority in those words didn't feel like mine. It felt borrowed from something deeper, older, waiting just beneath my skin. The hall stayed silent. Then Marcus, Gideon's skeptical beta, slowly nodded. Fair enough, Luna. Others followed his lead. Not complete acceptance, but the beginning of something. When I looked at Gideon, his expression was triumphant. And something else. Recognition. Like I'd just confirmed something he'd suspected all along. That night, Arthur finished his story about Sigmas. They say the bloodline died out, he said softly, his eyes holding mine with their centuries of knowledge. But sometimes, power doesn't die. It just sleeps, waiting for the right moment, or the right threat, to wake up. I laughed nervously, trying to dispel the tension coiling in my chest. Why are you telling me this? His smile was sad and knowing, weighted with truths I wasn't ready to hear. Because, child, you need to understand what you are before they figure it out. Chapter 5, Amber's Game. The diplomatic delegation from Crescent Moon arrived on a gray morning that matched my mood perfectly. I watched from Gideon's office window as they emerged from sleek vehicles, pack elders in formal attire, warriors standing guard, And at the center of it all, Amber Cross, radiant in cream silk that probably cost more than my childhood home. Finn stood beside her, and even from this distance, I could see the weight he carried in his shoulders. "You don't have to attend the dinner," Gideon said quietly from behind me. "I can make excuses." "No." I turned to face him, squaring my shoulders. "I'm your mate. I should be there." Something flickered in his eyes. Approval, maybe, or concern. "Then we'll face them together." But together felt like a lie when Amber's smile was so perfectly poisonous. The formal dinner was torture wrapped in diplomatic niceties. Amber sat across from me, her expression gracious and warm for everyone watching, her eyes cold as winter when they met mine. "Nova, you look well," she said, her voice dripping false sweetness. "Stone Ridge clearly agrees with you, though I imagine it must be quite an adjustment, being so far from home." "I'm exactly where I need to be," I replied, echoing the authority I'd found at the packed dinner. It felt less natural now, with her scrutiny peeling back my defenses. "Of course," her smile sharpened. "Isn't it amazing how some people can pretend to be something they're not? How easily we all play our roles when the stakes are high enough." The words landed like calculated blows. Gideon's hand found mine under the table, squeezing once. A warning or reassurance, I couldn't tell which. Finn barely looked at me all evening. When our eyes did meet, the guilt in his expression was so profound, it made my chest ache. He knew something, wanted to tell me something, but Amber's hand on his arm kept him silent. Halfway through dessert, I excused myself, needing air that didn't taste like Amber's carefully concealed venom. The corridor outside the dining hall was blessedly empty, cool stone against my heated skin. Then I heard voices. Low, urgent, coming from an alcove just around the corner. Settled in perfectly. Stone's guard is down. Amber's voice, stripped of its false warmth. And the alpha? A male voice, rough and unfamiliar. The scent that drifted toward me made my wolf snarl. Foreign pack, predatory, dangerous, besotted, or pretending to be. Either way, the Omega is the perfect pressure point. When Cyrus makes his move, he'll crush Stone through her. Clever. Something that might have been admiration colored the stranger's tone. "The girl suspects nothing," Amber laughed softly. "Nova. She's too busy playing Luna to realize she's a pawn. She always was easy to manipulate. Years of breaking her down ensured that." The words hit like physical blows. Years. She'd been preparing me for this. Every cruel comment, every public humiliation, every moment spent making me believe I was worthless. It had all been strategy. I'd never been just invisible. I'd been deliberately isolated. My vision blurred with fury, with betrayal, with something else. Something hot and electric that made the lights flicker. I burst into Gideon's office moments later, not caring who saw me, not caring about protocols or propriety. "Did you know?" The words exploded out of me. "Did you know I was being targeted?" He looked up from his desk, expression immediately guarded. "Nova, answer me. Did you know what Amber was doing? That she was working with someone named Cyrus?" His jaw tightened. "I suspected. That's part of why I claimed you. You were in danger. The confirmation shattered something. So I was what? A rescue mission? A damsel you swooped in to save? You were a person who needed protection." His voice rose to match mine. "Is that so wrong? Would you have preferred I left you there to be used as a weapon against both our packs?" "I would have preferred honesty. I would have preferred being told I was in danger, instead of being made into your political prop." "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like, Gideon?" "Because from where I'm standing, everyone has been playing me like a game piece. Amber broke me down on purpose. You claimed me for strategy. Even this," I gestured between us, "this fake relationship, this pretend bond, it's all just more manipulation." The windows cracked. Both of us froze. The sound was sharp, crystalline, spiderweb fractures spreading across the glass like frozen lightning. The temperature in the room plummeted, our breath misting in suddenly frigid air. "What?" I stared at my hands, trembling. I didn't. The door opened. Arthur Reed stepped through, his ancient eyes taking in the cracked windows, the ice forming on the edges of the desk, the way power hummed through the air like a living thing. "It's time, Gideon," he said quietly. "She needs to know." "Know what?" My voice shook. "What's happening to me?" Arthur moved to the bookshelf, pulled out a leather-bound volume so old the cover had worn smooth. A symbol marked the front, something that made my wolf howl in recognition, despite never having seen it before. Circles within circles, crowned with silver. He placed it on the table between us with reverence. "You are Sigma Nova Grace," he said quietly, and the words felt like destiny clicking into place. "The last of a bloodline that was supposed to be extinct. Your mother hid you, taught you to be invisible, suppressed your power with herbs and training, and desperate hope that you'd never be found." "That's impossible," I whispered. "Is it?" He gestured to the cracked windows, the frost spreading across stone. You've always seen truth, haven't you? Always known when people were lying. Always had strangers trust you, without knowing why. Always been overlooked in ways that defied logic. I'm just. You're Sigma, Gideon said, his voice rough. I suspected from the moment Arthur told me what to look for. The way you observe everything. The way you influence people without trying. The way my pack started following you after one dinner. He ran a hand through his hair. That's why I claimed you, Nova. Not just to protect you from being used. To protect you from being killed. Killed? The word came out breathless. Arthur's expression was grave. Cyrus Wolf has been hunting Sigmas for decades. That's why Amber was breaking you down. To make you vulnerable, desperate, easy to control or eliminate. And that's exactly why he wants you now. The symbol on the book seemed to glow in the dim light. My birthright. My death sentence. Dead, Arthur finished softly. Or under his control. Chapter 6. The Awakening Truth. Arthur Reed rolled up his sleeve, revealing scars that spiraled up his forearm like silver vines. Beautiful and terrible all at once. I'm Sigma, he said quietly. One of the last survivors of the Purge. I've spent 50 years hiding, searching, hoping that somewhere, somehow, our bloodline survived. I couldn't breathe, couldn't process. The room felt too small, the revelations too large. I recognized you the moment I saw you, he continued, his ancient eyes holding mine. Your invisibility wasn't weakness, Nova. It was unconscious cloaking, a Sigma defense mechanism. Your mother's bloodline, not your father's. She knew what you were from the moment you were born. The herbs, I whispered, remembering the bitter tea she made me drink every morning. She said they were for my health. They dampened your abilities, kept you hidden, kept you safe. Arthur's voice was gentle. Everything you thought made you weak. The way people overlooked you, how you could observe without being seen, how you sensed things others missed. Those were all Sigma traits manifesting despite the suppression. My whole body shook. My whole life has been a lie? No. Gideon's voice cut through my spiral, firm and grounding. Your whole life has been survival. There's a difference. I whirled on him, fury and fear churning in my chest. You knew. Before the engagement party, before everything, you knew what I was. I suspected. He didn't look away, didn't flinch from my anger. Arthur sent me to find any surviving Sigmas. When he identified potential markers in Crescent Moon Pack, I investigated. That's why I was at Finn's engagement. Not by coincidence. Not for politics. I was there for you. The manipulation cut deeper than Amber's cruelty ever had. So everything, the dramatic claim, the fake relationship, all of it, was just a mission? It was protection. His composure cracked. Cyrus Wolf has been hunting Sigmas for decades. He finds them, breaks them, forces their loyalty through torture and blackmail. The ones he can't control, he kills. 4 that we know of. Probably more. His voice dropped. I couldn't let that happen to you. So you claimed me like property instead? I gave you a shield. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. Every moment you stayed in Crescent Moon, you were vulnerable. Amber was systematically isolating you, breaking you down, making you desperate enough to accept any offer of escape. When Cyrus made his move, you would have had nowhere to go, no one to turn to. The truth of it settled like ice in my stomach. He would have killed me. Or worse. Arthur's voice was soft with old grief. The Sigmas he controls are shells, broken things that do his bidding, because he's destroyed everything they were. I sank into a chair, the weight of it crushing. What do? You learn control. Arthur pulled another chair close, his manner shifting to teacher. Your power is emerging whether you're ready or not. The herbs are out of your system. The suppression is ending. We need to teach you to channel it before it consumes you. How? Close your eyes. Feel the room. Not with your physical senses, with your Sigma awareness. I obeyed, and immediately felt them. Gideon's steady presence like granite, unshakable and protective. Arthur's ancient wisdom, layered with sorrow and hope. Beyond the office, the entire pack house hummed with emotional frequencies. Concern, curiosity, loyalty, doubt. You've been doing this your whole life, Arthur said. You just didn't know what it was. Now, push outward. Project Calm. Make me trust you. I tried. The power rose like a wave, massive, overwhelming, terrifying in its intensity. It wanted to surge, to crash, to consume everything in its path. The windows shattered completely. Frost spread across every surface. My scream echoed with a voice that wasn't entirely mine. Nova. Gideon's hands gripped my shoulders, his touch somehow cutting through the chaos. Look at me. Focus on me. His granite eyes anchored me. The power recognized him, responded to him, settled, because he was there. The room stopped shaking. The temperature stabilized. I gasped for air, shaking violently. How did you? An alpha who can ground a sigma is rare, Arthur said quietly, watching us with knowing eyes. Perhaps this bond isn't as fake as you both keep insisting. Gideon's hands were still on my shoulders, his touch burning through the fabric of my shirt. Our eyes met, and I saw everything he'd been hiding. The fear for my safety, the guilt over the deception, and something else. Something real that had grown in the spaces between the lies. I should have told you, he said roughly. Should have trusted you with the truth from the beginning. Would I have believed you? My laugh was bitter. I barely believe it now. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to process everything. I was Sigma, extinct bloodline. Hunted, powerful. Dangerous. My mother had hidden me my whole life. Gideon had claimed me to protect me. Amber had tried to break me to make me vulnerable. And somewhere out there, a predator named Cyrus Wolf was hunting me. The phone on my nightstand buzzed. Unknown number. I should have ignored it. Instead, I answered. Hello, little Sigma. The voice was smooth, cultured, laced with dark amusement. I've been looking for you for a very long time. My blood froze. Who? Cyrus Wolf. Though I imagine you've heard the name by now. A pause, heavy with menace. Let's talk about your future, Nova Grace, and how you're going to help me destroy Gideon Stone. Chapter 7. The Hunter's Trap. The calls came every night. Different numbers. Same smooth voice dripping false sympathy. He's using you, little Sigma, Cyrus crooned through the phone. A political tool wrapped in false affection. When the alliance is secure, when you've served your purpose, what do you think happens then? I should have blocked the numbers. Should have told Gideon. But something kept me listening. Maybe the part of me that still remembered being nothing. That couldn't quite believe someone like Gideon Stone would want someone like me for real. I understand what it's like to be a weapon, Cyrus continued, his tone shifting to something almost gentle. To have power that others want to control. But I'm offering you choice, Nova. Agency. Come to me willingly, and I'll show you what you could truly become. I'm not interested in your offers. Aren't you? Then why do you keep answering? His laugh was knowing. Because doubt is a seed, little Sigma. And I'm very patient about watering seeds. I hung up, but his words lingered like poison. Security around Stone Ridge intensified to suffocating levels. Warriors patrolled constantly. Gideon insisted someone accompany me everywhere. He knew Cyrus was making his move. I could see it in the tension he carried like armor. My training with Arthur became relentless. Hours each day pushing my abilities, learning control I desperately needed. Feel the lie, Arthur instructed as Marcus told a story with deliberate falsehoods woven in. Sigma wolves can sense truth like others sensed scent. I could. The lies tasted metallic, wrong, setting off alarm bells in my mind. When I called Marcus on each deception, his expression shifted from skeptical to impressed. Project Influence, Arthur commanded next. Make him feel calm. The power rose easier now, more controlled. I pushed warmth and safety toward Marcus, watched his shoulders relax, his defensive posture soften. But emotion still triggered surges. Anger made lights explode. Fear dropped temperatures. Joy caused small tremors. Control will come, Arthur assured me. But power this strong, suppressed this long. It's like a dam breaking. The flood comes before the flow. The pack gathering that evening tested everything I'd learned. Dozens of wolves watching me, judging whether their alpha's choice deserved respect. I performed confidence I didn't feel, but something shifted halfway through. My Sigma abilities made the performance real. Pack members started genuinely seeking my opinion, deferring to my judgment, following me not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Marcus approached as the gathering ended, his gruff expression softened by something like respect. You're not what I expected, Luna. But you're exactly what this pack needs. The formal acknowledgement sent ripples through watching wolves. If the beta accepted me, others would follow. Then Amber appeared. Nova. Her voice was bright. False. I had to check on my old friend. Make sure you're settling in. The private conversation she maneuvered me into reeked of desperation beneath the manipulation. Gideon will never truly love you, she said, her perfect mask slipping slightly. You're a mission to him. A responsibility. But Cyrus sees your real value. He could give you everything. My Sigma sense caught the lie beneath her words. Not about Gideon. She believed that part. But everything else was scripted, forced. I pushed deeper, reading the emotion she tried to hide. Terror. Bone deep, suffocating terror. What does he have on you? I asked quietly. Her composure cracked. I don't know what. You're terrified of him. I can feel it. What's Cyrus holding over you, Amber? For a moment, I saw past the cruelty to the trapped creature beneath. Then her walls slammed back up, and she fled. Is it? His voice was raw, honest, in a way that terrified me, because it doesn't feel fake anymore. Before I could answer, Arthur Reed's voice cut through the night. Gideon, Nova, inside. Now. We found him in the office, his expression grave. The territorial summit has been moved up. 3 days from now. He paused, and I knew the next words would destroy me. Cyrus Wolf has formally requested the right to challenge your claim under the right of transfer. He's bringing evidence that your bond is false, and he has a witness who'll testify you want to leave. Chapter 8. The Witness. I found them in Gideon's office at midnight. Him and Arthur, heads bent over documents, voices low and urgent. We could make the bond real, Arthur was saying. Formal mating. The bond can't be challenged if it's genuine. My heart stopped. I should have announced myself, but my feet stayed frozen in the doorway. It would protect her, Gideon replied, his voice tight with frustration. If the bond is real, Cyrus has no legal standing for the right of transfer. Strategy. Always strategy. Even now, even after that kiss that had felt like the world shifting, his first instinct was tactical. I pushed the door open. Both men looked up, guilt flashing across their faces. So that's the plan. My voice shook. Make me a permanent possession instead of a temporary one? Nova. Gideon stood, but I held up a hand. No, I'm done being a chess piece. Done being moved around for my own protection, without anyone asking what I actually want. I'm trying to keep you alive. His composure cracked, voice rising. By making decisions about my life, my body, my future, without consulting me. I stepped closer, anger and hurt warring in my chest. You think protection equals ownership. It doesn't. Then what do you want me to do? Let Cyrus claim you. Watch him break you like he broke the others? I want you to fight with me, not for me. My phone buzzed. Unknown number, but the message made my blood freeze. Neutral ground. Midnight Grove. Come alone. I have information that could save us both. -F. Finn. I slipped out, despite knowing it was dangerous, despite Gideon's protective detail, despite every rational thought screaming this was a trap. But my Sigma sense caught something in that message. Desperation, not deception. He was waiting in the grove, looking like he'd aged years in weeks. Guilt had carved hollows under his eyes, turned his warrior's posture into something broken. Nova. My name was a prayer, an apology, a plea. Thank you for coming. What do you want, Finn? To tell you the truth, all of it. He pulled out his phone, showed me a photo of a young girl, maybe 16, with his same dark eyes. My sister Claire. She has a rare genetic disorder. Without treatment, she'll be dead before her 18th birthday. My Sigma sense felt no deception, only anguish. Cyrus offered to pay for her treatment. Experimental procedures, the best doctors, everything she needs, in exchange for my cooperation. His voice broke. I had to push you away, encourage Amber, help isolate you, make you vulnerable enough that when Cyrus made his move, you'd be desperate. Every betrayal clicked into place. The distance, the engagement, the way he'd watched me suffer and done nothing. The engagement to Amber was part of it. She needed to be positioned as a trusted insider to both packs. He met my eyes, and I saw the full weight of what was coming. I'm the witness Cyrus plans to use at the summit. I'm supposed to testify that you confessed the bond was fake, that you want to leave Gideon. My testimony will be believed, because everyone knows we've been friends since childhood. Will you do it? I asked quietly. I chose my sister over you. His honesty was brutal. I'd make the same choice again. But I'm so sorry, Nova. I'm so fucking sorry. My Sigma nature wouldn't let me hate him. I felt the truth of his pain, the impossible choice, the love for his sister that had driven every terrible decision. I forgive you, I said, and meant it, but I can't trust you. He nodded, accepting the judgment, then pulled out a tablet. Cyrus has done this before. 4 other Sigmas over the past 20 years. I found documentation, testimonies, medical records, evidence of what he did to them. His hand shook. They're all dead, Nova. Or broken so completely they might as well be. The files he showed me were horrific. Torture, masked as training. Psychological destruction. Wolves who'd been powerful, reduced to shells that followed Cyrus's every command. I'll testify against him instead, Finn said suddenly. At the summit, I'll expose everything, even if it means Claire dies. No, the word was immediate. I won't let an innocent die, not for me. Then what? I'll find another way. I stood, decision crystallizing. But thank you. For this. For finally choosing truth over survival. I found Gideon pacing his office like a caged wolf. The relief that flooded his face when I walked in was quickly replaced by fury. You left without. Finn was the witness. Cyrus is blackmailing him with his sister's life. I explained everything, watching his expression shift from anger to understanding to tactical assessment. Then he said something I didn't expect. We get Finn's sister somewhere safe first. What? If Cyrus is using her as leverage, we remove the leverage. My pack has resources. We can get her the treatment she needs and protection from Cyrus. She's not your responsibility. His granite eyes softened. She's important to you. That makes her my responsibility. Something inside me cracked open. This wasn't strategy. This stopped being strategy for me weeks ago, he admitted quietly, crossing to where I stood. Maybe from the moment I saw you standing there, invisible to everyone but me. Maybe when you noticed my patrol weaknesses. Maybe when you commanded those assassins with power. That should terrify me, but instead just makes me want to keep you safe, while you learn to keep yourself safe. His hands framed my face, and I saw everything he'd been hiding. Everything real beneath the tactical alpha exterior. I love you, I whispered, the truth finally spoken. This isn't fake anymore. It never was, he replied. Not for me. The kiss was different this time. Not desperate or confused, but certain. A choice made freely. A bond formed not through politics but through something far more dangerous. Genuine feeling. We spent the night planning, strategizing, preparing for war. But somewhere between tactical discussions and contingency plans, our hands found each other. Our eyes met with understanding that went deeper than words. The night before the territorial summit, Gideon and I made our bond real, not through ceremony or politics, but through choice. We chose each other, knowing that tomorrow, Cyrus Wolf would try to tear us apart. What we didn't know was that the real threat wouldn't come from Cyrus's challenge. It would come from the evidence he'd fabricated, using my own words against me. Chapter 9. The Forged Truth. The territorial summit was held on neutral ground, a massive stone amphitheater built into mountainside, ancient and imposing. Alphas from every regional pack filled the seats, their councils flanking them, warriors standing guard. The air thrummed with territorial tension and political calculation. Gideon and I arrived as a united front, his hand firm on my lower back, our bond, now real, humming between us like a living thing. But I felt the stares, heard the whispers. The Omega who'd somehow claimed the most powerful Alpha's attention. The Sigma who was supposed to be extinct. Then Cyrus Wolf made his entrance. He was massive, nearly Gideon's height, with the kind of classical good looks that made people instinctively trust him. Warm smile, confident stride, charming nods to the assembled alphas. But his eyes, when they found mine, were predator's eyes. Cold. Calculating. Hungry. Alpha stone. He greeted Gideon with false warmth. And the lovely Nova. I've heard so much about you. The formal dinner was torture-wrapped in diplomatic niceties. Cyrus sat across from us, treating me with exaggerated respect that made Gideon look controlling by comparison. Every time Gideon's protective instincts flared, Cyrus's knowing smile grew wider. You must feel so safe with such a powerful mate, Cyrus said, his tone dripping false sympathy. Though I imagine it's overwhelming, being claimed so publicly, so suddenly. The implication was clear. I'd had no choice, no agency. Then the challenge began. I invoke the right of transfer, Cyrus announced, his voice carrying across the amphitheater. The council stirred. This was ancient law, rarely used, dangerous to invoke. I claim that the bond between Alpha Stone and Nova Grace is false. That she is held against her will. That she deserves the freedom to choose. Gideon's hand tightened on mine, but he couldn't speak. The accused Alpha had no voice in right of transfer proceedings. This was my fight. Cyrus presented his evidence with the skill of a master manipulator. Recordings of my conversation with Finn, edited to remove context, making it sound like I was planning escape. Documents supposedly showing me researching how to break pack bonds. The council murmured, uncertain. Then came the devastating blow. And finally, Cyrus produced a letter, my handwriting stark against cream paper, her own words. Written to Arthur Reed, Gideon's trusted advisor. I recognized it instantly. The letter I'd written weeks ago, confessing my fears to Arthur. My worry that staying with Gideon put him in danger. My questions about whether I should leave for everyone's safety. Arthur's face went stricken. His private correspondence with me, stolen and weaponized. Cyrus read it aloud, his voice gentle, sympathetic. I'm afraid I'm more danger to him than help. Maybe it would be better if I left. Maybe everyone would be safer if I just disappeared again. The words hung in the air, damning. She's a prisoner, not a mate, Cyrus argued. I'm offering her freedom. Choice. The dignity to decide her own fate. He almost sounded like he believed it. The council deliberated in hushed tones. The evidence was compelling. Too compelling. I opened my mouth to defend myself, but what could I say? The bond had started as a lie. I had written those words. Everything Cyrus was saying, twisted truth, just enough to sound right. Then Finn walked in. "I have testimony," he announced, his voice shaking, but determined. "About the blackmail. About how Cyrus has been manipulating everyone." He told them everything. His sister, the coercion, Amber's role. Chaos erupted as Amber tried to flee, only for Marcus to intercept her with warrior efficiency. But Cyrus was prepared. "Of course Finn would say this," he countered smoothly. "Gideon's pack is currently treating his sister. Medical records show treatment began 3 weeks ago. He produced documents. Alpha Stone bought his loyalty, bought his testimony." The council's uncertainty deepened. Evidence on both sides. Accusations and counter-accusations. How could they determine truth? "The default ruling stands," the head elder announced. "We will grant the transfer, unless Nova Grace can prove her bond with Alpha Stone is genuine." But how do you prove real feelings, especially when everyone knows it started as political strategy? I looked at Gideon, saw the desperation in his granite eyes, the fear he was trying to hide, saw everything we'd built together, the training sessions, the late-night conversations, the moment his protection became partnership, the kiss that had shattered all our lies. Real. It was all real now. But words wouldn't convince them. Evidence wouldn't sway them. Only truth would. Arthur's voice echoed in my memory. "Truth is your weapon." I stood, and the amphitheater went silent. Every alpha, every council member, every witness turned to watch. I felt Gideon's hope, Cyrus's confident smugness, the council's political calculation. And I made a choice. I stopped trying to prove I belonged with Gideon. Instead, I decided to prove what I really was. "You want truth?" I said, "and let my Sigma power blaze to life for everyone to see. Let me show you truth." My eyes blazed silver. The ancient crown of authority materialized above my head, visible only to wolves, a manifestation of power thought extinct. The temperature dropped. The ground trembled. Every wolf in the amphitheater felt the weight of something older and more powerful than any alpha. "I am Sigma," I declared, my voice carrying authority that made even the eldest alphas straighten. "And truth is my domain." Chapter 10. The Sigma's Judgment. The silver light blazing from my eyes cast shadows across the ancient amphitheater. Above my head, visible only to wolves, a crown of authority materialized, ancient symbol of Sigma power that hadn't been seen in 50 years. The temperature plummeted. The ground trembled. Every wolf in attendance felt the weight of something that predated their oldest laws. The collective gasp was audible. Cyrus's confident expression cracked. He'd known I was Sigma, but not that I'd awakened. Not that I'd learned to wield the power he'd spent decades hunting. "You want to know if my bond with Gideon is real?" My voice carried the authority of ancient judges, truth keepers, who'd held alphas accountable before corrupt power hunted us to extinction. "I'll show you something better. I'll show you what's real about Cyrus Wolf." I turned to face him, let my Sigma sense expand, touch the lies he'd wrapped around himself like armor. "Did you orchestrate the attacks on Stone Ridge?" He tried to resist. I watched him fight against the compulsion, muscles straining, jaw clenched. But Sigma power was designed for exactly this, forcing truth from those who'd learned to weaponize deception. "Yes." The word tore from his throat against his will. The council stirred. I pressed forward. "Relentless. Did you blackmail Finn Carter with his sister's life?" "Yes." "How many Sigmas have you killed?" His face twisted with fury and terror. 4. "How many mates have you murdered?" 6. Each answer was agony for him, truth ripped from depths he'd kept hidden for decades. He lunged at me, shifting mid-leap, massive wolf form aimed at my throat. I raised one hand, and he froze mid-air, suspended by power that made alpha dominance look like child's play. His wolf whimpered, completely unable to resist the command burning through my gesture. "The Sigmas were judges," Arthur's voice rang out, providing context the younger wolves needed. Their power was specifically designed to hold alphas accountable, to ensure those with strength couldn't abuse those without. That's why corrupt alphas hunted them to extinction, because they couldn't be manipulated, couldn't be controlled, couldn't be broken. I released Cyrus. He crashed to the ground, shifting back to human form, gasping. Finn provided documentation, I continued, producing the files on the tablet. Medical records of mates who died under suspicious circumstances. Testimony from survivors. Financial records showing systematic acquisition of vulnerable wolves, used for political gain, then discarded when no longer useful. I showed them everything. The pattern was undeniable. Cyrus Wolf had built his power on the broken bodies of those he'd claimed to protect. "You wanted me for the same reason," I said quietly. Not for a mate, for a weapon you could control. Another Sigma to break and use against your enemies. The council's judgment was swift. Cyrus Wolf, you are stripped of alpha status, the head elder pronounced. Your territory is dissolved. Your pack is freed to choose new leadership. You are exiled as Lone Wolf. The ultimate disgrace. Cyrus's howl of rage echoed through the amphitheater, but warriors were already moving to escort him away. Amber was given a choice: exile or rehabilitation. She chose the latter. Began testifying about Cyrus's entire network with the desperate fervor of someone trying to earn redemption. Then I turned to address the entire summit, feeling the weight of what came next. Omegas are not weak, I said, my voice carrying to every corner. Those you overlook are not powerless. And anyone who uses vulnerability as a weapon against others will answer to those they tried to break. I established new laws, protections for vulnerable pack members, rights that couldn't be violated, sanctuary for any Sigmas who might emerge from decades of hiding. I claim my position not just as Gideon's mate, I continued, but as Sigma in my own right. I chose him, not because I needed his protection, but because I wanted his partnership. Gideon stood, his granite eyes finding mine across the space. She was never mine to claim, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I'm hers, if she'll have me. The bond between us blazed bright and true, equals who'd chosen each other despite everything. Finn approached afterward, his sister safe in Stone Ridge's care, guilt and hope warring on his face. We reconciled not as what we were, but as what we could be. Friends who understood that some scars never fully heal, but forgiveness was still possible. Other wolves approached tentatively as the summit ended. Whispers that maybe they were Sigma too. Maybe they could finally stop hiding. I'd started something bigger than myself. 3 months later, Stone Ridge thrived under joint leadership. Gideon as Alpha, me as Sigma Luna. My role wasn't traditional. I was truth keeper, protector, the one who ensured power never again went unchecked. 7 Sigmas had emerged. I trained them in the Great Hall, teaching control Arthur had taught me. My mother visited, confessed through tears that she'd always known what I was. We found forgiveness and understanding. Gideon and I still laughed about our beginning. Act like you're mine had become, be mine for real. I stood at Stone Ridge's highest point, watching new Sigmas arrive for training. Gideon's arms wrapped around me from behind, his chin resting on my head. What are you thinking? He murmured. That I spent 24 years being invisible because I thought that's what I was, someone meant to disappear. I was wrong. I was invisible because I was dangerous, and the universe was waiting for the right moment to let me be seen. His arms tightened. I didn't save you. No, I agreed. You gave me the safety to become what I always was. Below, Arthur guided the new Sigmas through their first exercises. A bloodline returning from extinction. Power reclaimed. Truth restored. I was Sigma. I was seen. And I was finally, powerfully free. Free to be dangerous. Free to be gentle. Free to be everything at once. And the wolves who once overlooked me would never make that mistake again.